Hello and welcome to Indie Darlings, the show where I shine a spotlight on cool indie games I play. For the debut episode of the show, let's take a look at a title I picked up off the PlayStation Store when it was on sale. And that title is Jamestown. I mean Jamestown Plus. I mean Jamestown Plus Complete. Screw it, let's just start.
Indie Darlings, Jamestown Plus Complete.
So, Jamestown is a shmup, a 2D vertical shooter. And I have a bit of a soft spot for these kind of games, despite not being very good at them. In my opinion, they are what you need when you're after pure gameplay, with a tight focus on blowing stuff up and dodging. And Jamestown is a fun one. But I imagine you actually want more information than that before buying it. And since I'm so good to you, let me give you that now. Given that I just described the genre as pure gameplay, let's begin by talking about all the stuff that isn't gameplay. So, there is technically a story to the game. The setting of the game is an alternate history, where instead of us Brits colonising America, we colonised Mars. You will get a cutscene consisting of pictures and text play before each stage, but these cutscenes are skippable, and honestly they're not very memorable either, so I would recommend skipping them. But if you don't skip them, the story essentially boils down to a cool setting used as an excuse to shoot up a load of Martians and Spaniards who are after your death and the planet for themselves. But the other non-gameplay component I want to talk about is the graphics, and I have a lot more positive things to say about them. A lot of indie titles are very cookie cutter with their visuals, with so many being 8-bit retro style. And honestly, that's kinda generic and unimpressive a lot of the time. Generally, it's just used because it's easier to do in a more detailed 2D style. But as I'm sure you've seen by now, Jamestown does not wuss out like this. It looks a lot more detailed with its sprite and design style. In fact, it's a lot more reminiscent of the Neo Geo rather than the NES. In fact, the game it particularly reminds me of is Metal Slug, and it looks darn good. Anyway, now that's over with, let's talk about the main course, the gameplay. Now the main gimmick of the game is the Vaunt mode, which is a powered up mode where you do double damage. And the meter for this is kept up by collecting the items dropped from destroyed enemies. When you trigger Vaunt mode, you also get a temporary shield, but given how useful Vaunt mode is, this doesn't really play out to the potential of risk versus reward of choosing whether to use it, as you don't want to not use Vaunt mode when you can. The main other interesting wrinkle to the game comes in the form of the different ships, as what ship you choose to use can really change up the gameplay and add some real replay value to the game. For example, you can choose a ship with a sword that is powerful but requires you to get closer to the enemies due to its smaller range. Or you could choose a ship with a droppable beam weapon, where you position it in the optimal position and then you can focus on dodging. But this leads onto one of my problems with the game, and that is the in-game shop, which you have to use to buy the ships. And the problem with this is that it feels unnecessarily grindy relative to the number of levels in the game. Now, the game isn't free to play, but that's the kind of feeling I get with the shop. And what's worse is the complete part of the title I mentioned earlier is an included DLC pack of 4 ships if you buy this complete version. But only one of these ships is unlocked, and you have to buy the other 3 in the in-game shop. Yes, you have to earn 3/4 of the DLC. Oh, and while I'm explaining titles, the plus part refers to this version having a couple of extra levels when compared to the original PC release. And another weird thing the game does is its selectable difficulty levels. Now, as I said earlier, I'm not great at this type of game, so this is a welcome addition. But the weird thing is that the later levels don't have the lower difficulty options and require you to beat the previous levels on the higher difficulties. Now, it only makes you go as high as the 3rd of the 5 difficulties to access all the levels, and I did do it, so it's still not extremely difficult, but it seems a strange thing to do as it runs counterproductive to offering the lower difficulties. As well as your 7 standard levels, the game also offers 20 challenges to do. But honestly, I just don't have the patience or skills to do many of them. So the game does have a decent amount of content for a downloadable shmup, and with all the different ships, there's a good bit of replay value to it as well. So in short, I'd say if you're into this kind of game, this is a decent entry into the genre to pick up and play. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. And you know, the late David Bowie asked, is there life on Mars? And I now know the answer. No, not when I'm done with it.